Story 1 title: The Clockmaker's Secret. In a quiet town nestled between rolling hills, there lived a man named Mr. Dawson. He was the town's clockmaker, known for his skill in crafting beautiful and intricate timepieces. His workshop was filled with the steady ticking of clocks, large and small, and the air smelled of wood, oil, and metal. Mr. Dawson was a private man, rarely seen outside his shop. The townspeople admired his work but knew little about him. He had lived in the town for many years, but his past was a mystery. The only thing everyone knew for certain was that Mr. Dawson's clocks were more than just timekeepers. They seemed to hold a kind of magic. One evening, a young woman named Emily visited his shop. She had recently moved to the town and needed a clock for her new home. She was fascinated by the many clocks in Mr. Dawson's workshop, each one unique and full of character. After browsing for a while, she chose a small, elegant clock with golden hands and a deep mahogany finish. As Mr. Dawson wrapped the clock for her, Emily noticed a large, dusty clock in the corner, covered with a dark cloth. "What's that one?" she asked, her curiosity piqued. Mr. Dawson hesitated for a moment before replying, "That clock is not for sale. It's special, you see." Emily's interest grew. "Why is it special?" she inquired gently. The old clockmaker sighed, as if deciding whether to share a secret. Finally, he spoke. "Many years ago, I crafted that clock for a dear friend. It was supposed to be my finest work, but something went wrong. The clock, it doesn't just measure time. It controls it." Emily's eyes widened in surprise. "Controls time? How?" Mr. Dawson continued, his voice low and serious. "The clock can move time forward or backward, but it comes with a cost. Every time it is used, it takes a piece of the user's life. My friend, who was desperate to change his past, used it too many times. Eventually, he disappeared, lost to time." Emily was both intrigued and cautious. "Why do you keep it, then?" Mr. Dawson looked at the clock with a mixture of sadness and resolve. "I keep it to remind myself of the dangers of trying to change what cannot be undone. The past is meant to be learned from, not altered." Emily understood the weight of his words. She thanked Mr. Dawson and left the shop with her new clock, but the story of the mysterious time-controlling clock stayed with her. Over the years, Emily became a regular visitor to Mr. Dawson's shop, and the two developed a friendship. She often wondered about the clock in the corner, but never asked about it again. She realized that some secrets were better left undisturbed, and that life was about moving forward, not looking back. Mr. Dawson passed away peacefully in his sleep a few years later, leaving the shop and all its clocks to Emily. She continued his work, crafting clocks with care and precision, but she never touched the one in the corner. It remained covered, a silent reminder of the power and danger of tampering with time. And so, the town continued to tick along, with Emily as its new clockmaker, carrying forward Mr. Dawson's legacy of wisdom and craftsmanship. The end. Story 2 title: The Lonely Lighthouse. On a rugged cliff by the sea, there stood an old lighthouse. For decades, it had guided ships safely to shore, its bright light cutting through the thickest fog and darkest nights. The lighthouse keeper, Mr. Harrington, had lived there alone for as long as anyone could remember. Mr. Harrington was a solitary man, content with his quiet life. He took pride in his work, making sure the light never faltered, especially during storms. He would climb the steep stairs to the top of the lighthouse every evening, light the lamp, and then sit in his small room below, listening to the waves crash against the rocks. One winter night, a fierce storm rolled in. The wind howled, and the sea roared like an angry beast. Mr. Harrington had just lit the lamp when he heard a strange sound, a knock at the door. It was rare for anyone to visit the lighthouse, especially in such weather. Curious and cautious, he opened the door. There, soaked and shivering, stood a young woman. Her clothes were torn, and she looked as if she had been through an ordeal. "Please, may I come in?" she asked, her voice trembling. Mr. Harrington quickly let her in and offered her a warm blanket and a hot cup of tea. As she sat by the fire, he asked, "What happened? How did you end up here?" The woman, who introduced herself as Lily, explained that she had been traveling on a ship that was caught in the storm. The ship had struck a rock and was sinking fast. She had managed to escape in a small lifeboat, but the waves had carried her to the rocky shore near the lighthouse. She had seen the light and made her way up the cliff, hoping for help. Mr. Harrington listened quietly, his heart heavy with concern for the other passengers. "You're safe here," he reassured her. "But we must signal for help." For the next few hours, they worked together to send out distress signals from the lighthouse, hoping that someone would see them and come to rescue the survivors. As they waited, they talked. Lily spoke of her life, her dreams of seeing the world, and her love for the sea. Mr. Harrington, in turn, shared stories of his years as a lighthouse keeper, the ships he had guided, and the lonely nights he had spent watching the horizon. In the early hours of the morning, the storm began to subside, and a rescue ship arrived, drawn by the lighthouse's signals. The survivors from Lily's ship were found and brought aboard, including the ship's captain, who thanked Mr. Harrington and Lily for their efforts. As the sun rose, casting a golden light over the sea, Lily prepared to leave with the rescue ship. She turned to Mr. Harrington and said, "Thank you for saving my life. You're not as alone as you think, you know. The sea, the ships, the people, they're all connected by your light." Mr. Harrington smiled, feeling a warmth he hadn't felt in years. "Take care, Lily. And remember, the lighthouse will always be here, guiding you home." Lily waved goodbye and boarded the ship, her heart full of gratitude. As the ship sailed away, Mr. Harrington watched it disappear into the distance, the lighthouse's beams still shining brightly. For the first time in a long while, Mr. Harrington didn't feel so lonely. He realized that his work wasn't just about guiding ships, it was about connecting with people, even from afar. And as he continued his duties, he knew that he would always carry the memory of that stormy night and the young woman who had reminded him of the light within himself. The end.